The Capital Investment Committee hearing for April 7th is called to order. Good morning, members. Today we'll hear several bonding bills on an informational-only basis. The last part of the hearing will be an overview by the Department of Corrections on the Minnesota Regional and County Jails Consolidation or Merger Report. But first off, we're going to start with the Lake Superior Zoo. And we have Director Hobbs. Correct?
Yes.
All right. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and members. House File 3700 is a pretty rare request from the Lake Superior Zoo, and it's driven out of necessity. This century-old infrastructure now requires some generational investments to remain safe, functional, and accredited. As the only AZA-accredited zoo in serving greater Minnesota, we're asking for an equitable support to ensure families and rural school districts in the Northland have the same access to the high-quality STEM educational experiences as those folks here in the Twin Cities. This request is aimed toward prevention and maintenance, replacing a 30-year-old HVAC and then electrical systems now avoids potential life-saving emergency or life-threatening emergencies for the animals, especially in the winter up there in Duluth. It also preserves critical assets like restoring the historic Works Progress Administration bluestone bridges and repairing leaky habitat basins that are currently starting to undermine structural integrity. These are shovel-ready projects focused on essential infrastructure and ADA accessibility, but at its core, this request is about ensuring that everybody who visits has a safe, accessible, and world-class experience at the Lake Superior Zoo, regardless of zip code, while maintaining their AZA accreditation, which is very important. Thank you, and with that, I'd like to pass it over to my testifier.
Thank you, Representative Johnson and Mr. Chair. I'll introduce our guests first. We have Ozzy the desert tortoise. He's a 45-year-old resident at the zoo and a great ambassador for his species. And then in here we have Eddie, our three-banded armadillo. So we went with animals that is Eddie is very fast and Ozzy not so much. And so these animals would directly benefit from our request of an HVAC system. We have 7 furnaces in our main building that is about to be 100 years old, and those 7 furnaces alone are 30-plus years old. We have just over a mile pathway that is paved, that is in need of repair to maintain ADA accessibility so that we can remain AZA accredited. And so we are the 19th oldest zoo in the country. We have been on again, off again accredited. We've been accredited the last 2 cycles, and that accreditation allows for us to participate in global conservation efforts and maintains the highest level of care for animals in our facility. And so we rarely come before this committee and ask for state bonding funds. As a regional amenity that serves all of northeastern Minnesota down to even Pine City and over northwestern Wisconsin as well. We have a large geographic footprint of folks that come visit our zoo, and we want to maintain a healthy environment in which folks can participate in conservation learning. And that's broadly it. We've got some leaking tiger pool leaks. We've got some fencing that needs updated. So it's all kind of core functioning things. And so the $6 million ask would actually allow for us to fix up all of our deferred maintenance. It wouldn't be something that we would keep coming back, you know, next session. 6 million would actually let us really get caught up, which would be really helpful. If you may not be aware, we had a flood in 2012 that was really debilitating to zoo services, and we're in a much better place now and moving forward from that, and still making some repairs as we go. But all of our habitats are filled. We have 120 species and over 300 animals on a 19-acre campus, so we're slightly larger than Como Zoo. And slightly younger, but not much. And that's kind of the history of the Lake Superior Zoo. And it was a city-ran zoo until 2009, in which part, at that point, the Lake Superior Zoological Society started managing the facility on behalf of the city. So we are a public-private partnership in that regard. Still a public zoo that we manage on behalf of the city of Duluth.
Just want to take a quick note that we have Lizzie Larson here and Aaron Tone from the zoo helping with it. Welcome to the committee. Any discussion from members? Representative Scrava.
No, I'm fine. I think I'm co-author on the bill, so I know it. So I support anything in Duluth because what's good for Duluth is good for the range. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director, can you share with us what happened in the 2012 flood? Chair Murphy usually likes to tell us the story.
Yeah, so I was not, Lizzie was actually there. If You want her to?
I'd be happy to. Do I need
Yeah.
to be in front of one
Sure.
of the
Grab
microphones?
one of the mics.
Yes, so back in 2012, I got a call at about 2 in the morning saying that one of our seals was on the road, and that's not normal. So I was like, I should probably go to work. So we got there, and the flood had actually, Kingsbury Creek runs through our zoo, and there are a couple culverts that are run by the train that goes right next to us. And those culverts filled up with basically picnic benches, debris, concrete, all sorts of different things that were kind of knocked free as this big flood started to come through. And unfortunately, it clogged those culverts, and our zoo filled up basically like a bathtub. And so the entire middle of the zoo was basically underwater. So our harbor seals were out and on the road. Our polar bear was out walking around on grounds. She was actually, when we found her, she was out in front of her exhibit, looking into her exhibit, like, how do I get back in there? And we unfortunately did have 14 animals pass away. They drowned, unfortunately. And the buildings that were affected by the flood were some of our key exhibits, and that was our polar bear, our polar bear, harbor seal, and foxes. So over the last 10 years, we've really built back from that flood, but it was a devastating loss for all of us, but we are back stronger than ever. It's just we still have deferred maintenance from that 2012 flood that we have not been able to fix yet.
Chair Lee?
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that, and thank you, Director, and the three of you for bringing the two animals down. Davis, my son here, is really excited, even though he's shy right now, and to our in-house firefighter, Davis wanted to show you his Paw Patrol fire truck, too. Thank you.
Go Marshall!
Closing comments?
Thank you, Chair, members. I was actually working for the fire department the night of the flood, so we were running around the city, and when the call actually came across the radio of finding seals, seeing the seal on the Grand Avenue, which is the major road right there in front of the zoo, was not quite what you expected to hear, although that night was pretty hectic. And then hearing the radio traffic that the polar bear was out of its enclosure as well, and the whole process that went into going and making sure that it was still somewhat contained was quite an interesting night. But to Representative Scraba's point, this is a regional asset. These fixes would set it up for success into the future and continue with the educational things that they do. They do a phenomenal job with really bringing it, not just having it be a tourist thing, but having it be a regional and city asset where folks bring their families to. And thank you for them for coming down and sharing their stories.
Thank you, Representative Johnson and Director Hobbs and the staff from the zoo for bringing the animals.
Thank you.
We will move on to another of Rep. Johnson's bill here as soon as everything gets cleared up. House File 3982. It's a policy bill impacting the Port Development Assistance Program. This bill and all remaining bills on today's agenda have been allotted 5 minutes. We'll see how well we do tracking those times. No, we're gonna do it. Representative Johnson, do you want to proceed while they're just finishing up here?
I will. Thank you, Chair, members. House File 3982 is a simple bill that strikes reference to non-federal share and replaces it with total cost for port development assistance projects. Important to note, this change would not result in any additional expense for the state. The Port Development Assistance Program is fully funded by members of this committee via the omnibus capital investment bills and is capped at the amount that the committee sets. As my testifier will highlight, the existing language has proven difficult for our ports to work with, and when they seek and are awarded federal funds. We think this change will help incentivize ports to bring additional federal funding through those infrastructure dollars here to Minnesota. Another important note is that MnDOT does not oppose this change. They were unaware of similar language in other MnDOT-run programs and support the effort to bring additional federal funding into the state for port infrastructure. I have with me today Jeff Udd from the Duluth Seaway Port Authority, who will outline the impact of this change and highlight how some of it impacted them there in Duluth. So I'll pass it off to Jeff.
Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jeff Udd, and I'm the Director of Government and Environmental Affairs at the Duluth Seaway Port Authority. And I'm here representing members of the Minnesota Ports Association, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. The members of the Ports Association are advocating for this important revision to the PDAP language. PDAP has historically required a 20% local match when using grant funds, and this has and continues to work well on projects where the only outside funding is state dollars. The current language as written, however, creates some issues for ports when seeking federal grant dollars. In these cases, the restriction on the use of PDAP dollars to no more than 80% of the non-federal share has resulted in the inability to fully leverage available federal dollars. Critical infrastructure projects being scaled back or not pursued at all, or awarded PDAP funds going unspent. This happened to us on a recently completed project that came in thankfully under budget. The Port Authority was not able to use $500,000 in awarded PDAP funds and had to use local funds to make up that shortfall. Since we rely heavily on competitive grant dollars to upgrade and improve port infrastructure, we're just asking for the flexibility in the use of limited state dollars to compete for and leverage for federal funding. Does not change or increase the financial exposure of the state. We can only spend what is approved to the capital investment bill. I would also like to mention that we discussed this with the MnDOT commissioner and her staff, and they weren't aware of any other grant program administered through MnDOT that had this type of restriction, and they didn't oppose the proposed language. I just want to close by saying the members of the Ports Association appreciate the PDAP program. These funds have been invaluable in critical port infrastructure improvements throughout the state. So thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you for being here today. I don't see any member questions. Any closing comments?
No, just thank you, chairs and members for considering the bill. Just reiterate that this wouldn't increase any funding. It just adds some increased flexibility that can hopefully be used to leverage more federal dollars. So thank you all very much for the consideration.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. Director, next up is Rep. Hanson's bill, House File 4478. And on deck, we have Representative Quam, House File 4275.
Just gonna show me how to bring animals, please. That's a good idea.
Representative Hanson, please introduce your bill.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members. I don't have anything cool like animals with me, but I do have some very important people from my community with me. Today, I'm going to talk to you about House File 4476. This is about Highway 13. Highway 13 is a critical corridor of commerce to both the South Metro region and to the state of Minnesota. Highway 13 is the access point for Highway 169, 101, 35W, the ports of Savage, Burnsville High School, our Orange Line, Metro Transit stations, our park and rides, and so much more. Highway 13 has been under construction most of my life, to some degree. And this bill represents what could be the end of an era to finish this work once and for all. I'm going to hand it over to my testifiers to tell you more about this, but I would love to bring an end to the era of construction that my life has seen on this road. I live off of this road, so I also encounter all of the traffic that comes through. We're talking about 50 to 60,000 cars a day that travel down this road as well. So I will hand it over to my testifiers. Thanks.
Representative Hanson, there's an amendment for reference as well on this bill. Do you want to just kind of give a brief overview of that?
Sure, this just gets a bill in the shape that we want it to be in.
Okay. First up, we have Christine Kelly, the mayor. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
My name is Christine Kelly, and I'm the mayor of the city of Savage. Thank you, Chair, allowing us to be here today to talk about this really important project. And when I talk about this important project, it's not just important for the city of Savage. It's not just important for Scott County, which is evident by the support that we have from the scale, the cities of Scott County talking about how important this Highway 13 project is. But it's important from a regional and state perspective. The commerce that's involved in the ports of Savage is critical to the state of Minnesota. I just wanted to address a little of that. As many of you know, as Representative Hanson mentioned, the construction for Highway 13 has been in the works for more than 25 years. 2 weeks ago, I saw some plans that were dated 1999. And so this project goes back a long way. Some people talk about the different segments that we've had. When we talk about the different segments, one of those segments actually was led by the city of Savage when we closed different access points to the city, or to the Highway 13 road, just to try and make the road safer and more accessible. And these taking actions that the city did, we did with our own funds, and it was a substantial amount of money. But it was one step that we took to try and show both the legislature and MnDOT how important this segment of the highway is. This request, I will say, is $68 million. It is not made lightly. I do understand that is a significant amount of money. But the purpose of this reconstruction is to improve the safety of this multimodal corridor. Many of you may know that 4 to 5% of the world's grain travels through the ports of Savage. It gets there by truck and by train, and then goes out through the barges. That is a significant amount of commerce. But the ports of Savage, which the only access is off of Highway 13, is not just the grains. There are lots of other businesses there. We have a letter of support from Ted Ewing, who has been expanding his business, and his prime property, his 10 out of 10 best property, is down at the ports of Savage, where he wants to expand his business. So we need your help in funding this very important infrastructure. And I just want to leave you with some thoughts about who it is that you're impacting. And I think about who uses this road every day, every week. And I think about, a couple who lives in Chaska who has 3 kids who are taking them to hockey and soccer and baseball. And they're traveling Highway 13 all the time, going from Chaska to Egan, or Chaska to Savage, Chaska to Burnsville. They need this road that they can travel safely on it, and that they can move at a reasonable pace instead of being stuck, caught in traffic at 5:30 p.m. I think about a couple in Inver Grove Heights who for 50 years has been going to the Chanhassen Dinner Theater. And, they go twice a year to celebrate Christmas and to celebrate their anniversary. And they hit the city of Savage and they wonder why this is so bad. And they watched the improvements at County Road 5 and thought, this is going to make a difference. It hasn't. They watched the improvement at Highway 13 where it travels south into the city of Prior Lake and thought, finally, this will make a difference. It hasn't. They watched the improvement at Dakota, which I will say has made a significant improvement with all of the truck traffic that goes into the ports of Savage. But for this couple, it doesn't change the amount of traffic and the volume and the slowing down. Finally, if we can get this funded, as Representative Hanson said, we would finally be able to say to this couple, now you can get to Chanhassen, and you don't have to go by 494. Highway 13 is the first east-west road, if you will, south of the river, south of 494. And if we want to help to alleviate some of this construction or some of this congestion on 494, making sure that this road is traversable is really important. And that's all I have. So I just wanted to thank you all for your time and attention, and I am willing to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have Lisa Freese, Project Manager for Scott County. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
My name is Lisa Freese, and I'm with the Transportation Services Department. And I really have no formal comments for you today. I'm here to be a technical resource for you if you have questions about the project. This is a very important project, and I think the mayor did a great job of highlighting how important it is for Scott County, Dakota County, and the southwest part of the metro area.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being here. Not seeing any members' questions. Any closing comments, Representative Hanson?
Thank you, Chair. As you can tell, there's some strong feelings about avoiding 494 down in the South Metro, so we'd like to avoid that as much as we can. And this is such an important project. Lisa has come out of retirement to stay here with us and to help us get this one over the finish line. So just really grateful for her continued service to our community and for the mayor and for the committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Chair Quam's bill, House File 4275. Please introduce your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members, thank you for hearing House File 4275. This is asking for $4 million for critical capital for the History Center of Olmsted County. Rochester and Olmsted are a bit unusual in that millions of people come to visit. Many are patients, but also family members. And this History Center gives a place for them to go and take their mind off the medical issues. But this History Center also has area schools, regional schools, have their students come and partake of the museum, and then there are multiple activities throughout the year to show us what our history was like. And there's a $2 million matching locally, not from tax dollars, to it to get this project going. About a half century ago, the museum structure was built, and so it needs to have some things fixed and upgraded. And I've got two testifiers, Executive Director Valerie and Board Secretary Linda, and thank you.
All right, first up, we have Valerie Wassmer, Executive Director of the History Center of Olmsted County. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to members of the committee. My name is Valerie Wassmer, and I am the Executive Director at the History Center of Olmsted County. I took my position about 2 years ago after 25 years of high school history, and I thought, if I can do that, I can do anything. So thank you to Representative Quam. As he said, we are requesting $4 million in state support to update our facility. 2026 is the 100th anniversary of the Olmsted County Historical Society, and so we've been very busy working on a new master plan. We've accomplished a lot of really great things. We have one of the most intact 1860s farmsteads in the Midwest. It is on the National Register of Historic Places, and we have spent and raised nearly $6 million to have that restored. And so we're pretty good at fundraising. We have over $400,000 donated just by our board alone to help make these improvements. But our last step, and maybe one of our most crucial, is updates to our History Center. As Representative Quam said, it's old, it's 53 years old. And although we've done a lot of great things in 2 years, we've doubled our memberships, we've brought in every single third grader in Rochester Public Schools for a free tour. The reality is our building is old and aging. Just a couple of things that are really difficult for a place that stores important archives and artifacts. We have a flat roof that someone was really smart about building 53 years ago in Minnesota. So our flat roof leaks. We have water coming up from the ground when we have a heavy rain or spring flood. And unfortunately, that flooding occurs in the library for the archives. And we have a current consistent drip in the vault where we store some of our 30,000 different artifacts. We have an outdated cooling and heating system, which makes it almost impossible to maintain the right humidity for artifacts. We are completely out of storage space. Our job is to preserve and share history, and in 2026, we're well beyond our space. So we have had to store things in outdoor buildings, which unfortunately does not have the proper climate control. And unfortunately, we've actually had to dispose of a few artifacts because of mold, because the climate is not proper. And lastly, our building is basically a bunker. If you look at the picture, it was built 53 years ago to be coming out of the ground. So it's kind of a concrete bunker, and we don't have proper IT. I don't even get Wi-Fi back in my office, so we need some significant IT updates. And basically, our building is just constant Band-Aids. It doesn't do anything. We have a 50-year-old boiler. The building leaks. And one of the biggest things for me as the education director is our education program. And we have amazing facilities outdoors. We have a bunch of historic buildings, but given the Minnesota winters, we can only use those for about 6 months out of the year. And we've built our education program up and our adult programming up, but we don't have classrooms. So what do you do with 85 third graders when you don't have anywhere to go and it's raining outside? So that's a bit of a problem. The good news is that we've outgrown our space, which is amazing. And what we're asking for now is not necessarily the big step of expansion, but rather to fix the infrastructure so that we can keep going without doing significant damage to our artifacts, our archives, and make it a little bit more livable. And expanding our exhibits, as Representative Quam said, we have about 3 million medical tourists, we call them, coming to Rochester. 3 million, and each person brings about 2 people with them. So we need a place where people can go. Our exhibits, our space isn't big enough, our storage isn't big enough, and we're on a great trajectory. I think I've said enough. I'm going to turn things over to Linda Willingans, who's a board member and really a very important part of our team.
Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Okay. My name is Linda Willingans, and I serve on the History Center Board for the last 14 years. I am currently the secretary of the board, which I have been secretary for many years. I was employed by the city of Rochester for 36 years. When I retired from the city, I went to the History Center because I wanted to do my genealogy. Well, I got hooked, and I've been there ever since, which is 18 years, doing research and helping others. The Olmsted County Historical Society was established in 1926 by Burton Eaton and several other founding members who wanted to collect and preserve the History Center of Olmsted County. Now, after several years in 2 different locations, we just outgrew those locations. We then built a new museum on land purchased in the southwest Rochester in 1972, where we have been collecting, preserving, and educating ever since. The Olmsted County Historical Society began doing business as a History Center of Olmsted County. The Olmsted Historical Society, DBA History Center of Olmsted County, is an independent, not-for-profit 501c3 organization governed by the Board of Directors. Each year, together with our enthusiastic volunteers, I'm one of them, providing educational and outreach programs, special events, museum exhibits, and much more. We currently own and operate 2 historic buildings, 2 historic farmsteads, in addition to operating seasonal tours of the Mailwood Historic Home. Okay. The last step in our master plan is upgrading the museum. You heard from Valerie, the executive director, about how we would use the bonding dollars. I am here to let you know we have a strong board of directors of professional people, and we are extremely lucky to have Olmsted County Commissioner David Sinjum on our board, and you will see a resolution of support from the county who is willing to work with us in partnership for this project. You also have received letters in your packet of community entities that support us. A couple examples will be the Olmsted County Board of Commissioners, Destination Medical Center, Rochester Area Chamber of Commerce, and other local historic groups.
Sounds good. Thank you for your testimony. Representative Carroll?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just, mainly it's just a comment. I served on the Plymouth City Council, and you piqued my interest when you said flat roof. I learned from my experience there that they are not ideal. And I wanted to point out there's a proud member of the Anti-Flat Roof Society and former Chair Erdahl sitting over here.
Oh.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other questions. Representative Perez-Vega.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just curious, because our history centers and museums here in my district offer admission assistance to families on SNAP. Is that something that the Olmsted History
We
Center?
do, yep. Anyone with EBT, anyone on SNAP, we are also part of the Museums for All program. Basically, if anyone indicates when they come in that admission might be an issue, we don't charge.
Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Not seeing any others. Any closing comments?
Well, our history is key to knowing where we came from and where we're going, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Representative Quam. Next up, we have Vice Chair Fogelman's bill, House File 4504. And then on deck is Representative Cha. Please introduce your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Committee. I have before us Bill 4504 for the County of Nobles. I have Administrator Heitkamp and Commissioner Allers here to explain more about the bill.
Mr. Heitkamp, if you want to introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Okay. Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Bruce Heitkamp. I'm the Nobles County Administrator. As Representative Fogelman mentioned, I have County Commissioner Justin Allers. And what we're presenting today is a request for funding for a sanitary sewer project for the village of Reading. It's an unincorporated village within the Summit Lake Township within Nobles County. In 2012, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency offered the Summit Lake Township Board a notice of violation as it was identified that the straight pipe sewer system that was leading into public waters was in violation of the effluent measures, polluting the creeks. So from that point on, in 2012, Summit Lake reached out to Nobles County for assistance. Nobles County created a subordinate sewer district. We refer to the Reading Sewer Service District. And then we've been trying to find a solution ever since. And we've been holding bi-monthly meetings for the last 3-4 years trying to find solutions. The community of Reading is 56 homes, 93 residents, 67% of which are low to moderate income folks. And so we're seeking $2.75 million to remedy and to build onto an $8 million projected project to provide a regulated licensed sanitary sewer system for the community of Reading. And we've been at this for many years. The Nobles County, I have a listing of expenses in front of us. Much of it have come on in the last 3 years or so, but I've in excess of $900,000 that Nobles County is committed towards this endeavor themselves, and working with the Public Facilities Authority and again MPCA. The funding is starting to come on board. We are shovel ready and ready to go. We are literally, our engineers, the Stantec Engineering Service, stated that we could be ready to go within a month with our bidding if the funding all comes together. And that's where we're here today asking for some assistance in trying to remedy this issue for the community of Reading and the district, which is the Reading Sewer Service District.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Commissioner Allers, please.
Nothing to add, just that
here
this
for
has been
expertise.
a long-going process.
Appreciate it. Representative Scraba?
Thank you, Chair. Are you designing this for more than 56? What's the total design for this project?
Right now, it's the 56 homes within the community of Reading. It literally looks like a little town, but it is unincorporated. And the district is all contained within Reading. I guess it does go outside of Reading a little bit on one side. And then the ponds that were, the land was purchased for the ponds is roughly 1.5 miles away to the south. And everything, there are some lift stations and other components that will get it to that treatment site. It will be treated in a 2-pond system, and then the effluent will go into, after treated, returned to one of the county ditch systems.
Representative Scraba.
Thank you, Chair. If 20 more people want to build houses in the community, can the system handle 20 more houses? Do you know what the capability of the system is?
The capabilities, it's pretty tight at that to keep the costs contained. And from what I gathered, if the community grew, it's the ponds at the end that we'd have to just purchase additional land for the ponds. So the pond, or the land that we purchased, I think was at 25,000 an acre. We'd probably need another couple of, it would be a doable, I think, local endeavor to grow a little bit, but it's at this point, it's contained pretty tight. There's not, there hasn't been a lot of sustained growth in the little community, and it's built right now or designed right now to handle what is there.
May I also add that the sewer district, we would have to redraw the boundaries to get more into the subordinate sewer district.
All right, thank
In
you.
order to,
Seeing no other questions, closing comments.
Thanks again to the Mr. Chair and the committee for hearing the bill and considering it.
Thank you for coming and testifying. Next up, we have Rep. Chaw's bill, House File 3933. On deck, we have Representative Howard, if he's here. Please introduce your bill.
Thank you, Chair and Committee, for hearing this bill. This bill is about public safety. Over the last 20 years, Woodbury has grown from a 40,000 resident community to 80,000. And this is about improvement projects on Highway 18 and the intersection of Highway 19. Without further ado, I'll defer to my Commissioner. Clausen, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, co-chairs Franson and Lee and members of the committee. Thank you for having me today. My name is Michelle Clausen. I'm the Washington County Commissioner representing District 5, which represents the community of Woodbury. I want to thank the Representative Chaw for his support of HF 3933 and the committee for a consideration of $500,000 request for our County Highway 18 and 19 intersection improvements. The purpose of this project is to improve the intersections of County Highway 18, also known as Bailey Road, and County Road 19, also known as Woodbury Drive in the city of Woodbury. Washington County is in partnership with the city of Woodbury working to address critical capacity and safety deficiencies in this major junction. To highlight a couple of highlights in this key benefited area, Woodbury is the 7th largest city of the state and a rapidly developing area with a significant strain in our transportation system. The intersection that we are referring to is located near 3 public and private schools, making traffic flow a primary concern of our safety of our students and families. Today, the intersection experiences significant backups, particularly overlapping school start times and end times. This intersection serves as a gateway to our major regional destination, the M Health Fairview Sports Center, which hosts numerous large events each year round. This project will focus on reducing congestion and ensuring that residents and visitors can navigate safely through this area efficiently while driving, walking, and biking. This intersection will have updated pedestrian sidewalks that lead to our Washington County Environment Center and also our city's dog park called Andy's Dog Park. This will also help all the kids that we see on electric scooters that are driving very fast across the intersections. Washington County is seeking $500,000 in state funds to help implement these improvements. Without state support, the county will be forced to divert funding from the essential public services to ensure this intersection is safe for growing community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for being here. Any member questions? Seeing none, closing comments.
Thank you for hearing this bonding bill, and thank you for logging over 2,500 hours on your bonding tour visiting Woodbury. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Chair Howard's bill 3949. Please introduce your bill.
Thank you, Chair Frederick. I have House File 3949, which is a bonding project critical to the city of Richfield and addresses a need for emergency backups for their water. The city for years has worked to find the best solution for this and has identified a course of action to connect up with the Minneapolis municipal water system under
Trunk Highway 62 along Fifth Avenue. It's a solution that works for Richfield and the region, and I will turn it over to my mayor, Mayor Supple, for more information and have backups as well for questions.
Welcome to committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for taking the time to hear from Richfield today and to Representative Howard for bringing forward the request. My name is Mary Supple, and I'm the mayor of Richfield, and I'm joined by Adam Marcos, project manager with Black & Veatch and lead engineer on our project. I'm here today to respectfully request your support for funding for the Water Emergency Interconnect Project between Richfield and Minneapolis. This project will see the construction of a water main between Richfield and Minneapolis water systems that can be relied upon by Richfield as a source of water in the event of an emergency disruption to our existing water system. This project is fundamentally about reliability, resilience, and public safety. Currently, Richfield operates as an independent water system. While that system is well managed, it's not immune to unexpected disruptions, whether from infrastructure failure or major maintenance needs to prevent failures, contamination events, cybersecurity attacks, extreme weather, or other emergencies. Without a secondary source of supply, even a short-term interruption could significantly impact residents, businesses, healthcare facilities, and essential services. By creating an interconnection between these two systems, we establish a vital backup in times of need. This redundancy ensures continuity of service, protects public health, and supports economic stability. It also strengthens emergency response capabilities, giving Richfield the flexibility to respond quickly and effectively to unforeseen events. In addition to emergency preparedness, this project represents a smart, forward-looking investment. It promotes regional collaboration, maximizes existing infrastructure, and reduces long-term risk. The cost of proactive investment today is far less than the potential economic and public health consequences of a prolonged water outage. Simply put, water is not optional. It is essential. This interconnect provides a safeguard that Richfield cannot afford to be without. Construction, ownership, and maintenance for this project will be Richfield's responsibility. We are asking for $2.5 million in state bonding to support the construction of this project. We are respectfully asking for your support in funding this important water resilience effort. Thank you for your time and consideration, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. We have project manager Adam Marcos. Do you have testimony or just questions?
No, I do not. I'm just here if there's any technical needs.
Moving on to member questions, we have Representative Sexton.
Thank you, Chair. My question resolves, I'm from Greer, Minnesota, so I'm not familiar with all the roles of the Met Council. Where's the Met Council involved in water resources, wastewater, things like that, between municipalities within the 7-county area?
Representative, who's
Well,
Mayor Supple?
I believe we do all our wastewater, goes through the Met Council, but this is drinking water, so it won't involve the wastewater system. It's just a backup system, so if something happens, we would have a source of water for our residents.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to understand, is what their role was.
Okay, perfect. Representative Carroll.
Thank you, Chair. Do you have any threat of PFAS in your area, in your town?
As far as I know, it's very, 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 very low. We're not at, like, I know some of the areas that are on the eastern side of the metro have a far larger impact, so ours is very, very small. Ours is more likely to be like from when they did training exercises with fire retardants and things like that, so it wasn't from a big manufacturing source.
Good, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, closing comments.
I thank the committee's consideration to this bill and all of the time that this committee takes into hearing about projects and touring all over the state. Thank you, Chair Frederick, Chair Lee, Chair Franson, for your time, and to the committee.
Thank you for coming. Next up, we have Representative Clardy's bill, House File 4238. Right. please introduce your bill.
Thank you, chairs. Do I say Fredericks and Lee and Franzen? We're introducing House File 4238 today, which is a very exciting bill, and it's not only regionally, but it has the whole state value there. The bill is for the Minnesota Hockey Hall of Fame, and the bill proposed is $5 million for general obligation, which is for the city of Inver Grove Heights, funding to support roads and infrastructure, and then also $20 million cash appropriation requested for the Minnesota Hockey Hall of Fame funding to support the facility and the construction of it. So today we're asking you to look at the $5 million for the GO, and I'd like to introduce my testifiers when you're ready.
Sounds good. First up, we have Mayor Dietrich. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Good morning. Thank you, co-chairs, for having us here today and members of the committee. I'm Brenda Dietrich, Mayor of Inver Grove Heights, and on behalf of the City Council and our community, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. As Representative Clardy mentioned, the Minnesota Hockey Hall of Fame is coming to Inver Grove Heights. This is a one-of-a-kind and once-in-a-lifetime type of project that truly will celebrate the history and heritage in our great state. We know this is a very exciting project for the Twin Cities region and the state as a whole. It is a transformative development project for the city as well. But we are not just looking for the state to pay for the project. Through City Council action, the city is estimating local investment at 14 to 17 million. Thus, the city is seeking $5 million from the state to help with the improvements. I will let my community development director walk you through the specifics of money in a moment. Personally, the City of Inver Grove Heights City Council and its residents have wanted this type of transformational development. From a regional perspective, the site is the perfect size to accommodate a development of this scale. And the location is perfectly situated adjacent to 494 and is central to the Minneapolis Airport, downtown St. Paul destinations, the Mall of America, and other major destinations. There's also a new 494 interchange planned at this location. The city and Dakota County together have completed the initial steps for this such interchange. So whether the Hall of Fame or any other project development at this location will happen, this interchange is of regional and state significance. And with that, I will introduce our Community Development Director, Jason Zemer.
Director Zemer, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairs Lee and Franson and members of the committee. My name is Jason Zemer. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Inver Grove Heights. We appreciate the opportunity to be here before you today. As the mayor said, I get the dubious task of talking about the money related to the project. The city's anticipated total financial investment is $14 to $17 million, which includes land acquisition, providing a development-ready site, and construction of roads and utilities for the project. The city will use a combination of cash for land acquisition and issue debt for the planned improvements. The $5 million that we're asking from the state will help fund construction of the roads, public water, and sanitary sewer extensions to service the area and the site and address stormwater issues and grading work related to those activities. To be clear, the funding will have a broad impact, not just specific to the project, but will also benefit other economic development activities in this particular area. As the mayor stated, we are accommodating a future 494 interchange into the site layout and roadway design. Some of the land that the city is currently acquiring, it will support right-of-way will be right-of-way acquisition to support the roads connecting into the interchange. So we are making sure that the investment that we're doing today does not affect any future state other enhancements that will be coming to the site with the interchange as a result of that. A project like this is of significance to the region and state, but do not happen but for public involvement. So we are asking you to consider the state investment of $5 million is a really good investment for a public works project that will have a multiple positive economic returns. And I can tell you as a parent of two hockey players, when I told my kids about the project, they were super excited. I have one that plays high school hockey, the other one that's still in youth. So this project is not just a regional asset for the Twin Cities metropolitan area. It's not just an important project for the city, but it's a destination project for the state as well, and it's part of our identity. Minnesota's synonymous with hockey as well. So a small investment from the state goes a really long way to develop a really cool project for Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll move to member questions. First up, Representative Sexton.
Thank you, Chair. Who will actually own the facility and be responsible for ongoing maintenance 25, 30 years from now when things come up like roofs and things like that?
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member Sexton. The city does have a development partner that's at the table. The developer will own, effectively half of the facility at this point, and that'll be a taxable facility. And then the Minnesota Hockey Hall of Fame nonprofit will own the ice arena portion of that. So it will be all entirely privately owned.
Any follow-up? Okay. Representative Scraba.
Thank you, Chair. For obvious reasons, how does this compete with the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame? And do we need two in the state?
Who would like to
Thank
take
you.
that one?
Thank you, co-chairs and committee member. So there is no competition. They actually intend to work in tandem. One is the National Hockey Hall of Fame, and this will be specific to Minnesota. I don't know if I have it in front of me, but we have had significant amount of players just from the Minnesota hockey in the Olympics recently. And so they do plan on collaborating on exhibits and sharing those, and I think it will actually enhance the one in Evelyn with that shared partnership.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, closing comments?
Our community is really excited about it, and I just see it as bringing a lot of economic stability to the whole area. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you for coming.
Let's play hockey.
Next up, we have Representative Reyer with House File 3927. Please introduce your bill.
Good morning, Chair and members. Pleased to introduce House File 3927 today. This is a bipartisan bonding bill to invest in two of Dakota County's popular regional parks, replacing the Lebanon Hills Beach House and the campground buildings at both Lebanon Hills and Lake Billsby Regional Parks. The current facilities are inadequate, and upgrading these facilities is an important priority for Dakota County. The county is requesting $22 million in bonding funds to make sure that families from Dakota County and beyond have safe and accessible places to swim and camp close to home. And with that, I'd like to welcome Dakota County Parks Director Nikki Geisler to tell us more about the project.
Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Nikki Geisler. I'm the Parks Director for Dakota County, and thank you, Representative Reyer. Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, and members, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. Dakota County Parks, well, actually, I want to first say I want to extend a special thank you to Representative Reyer, Altendorf, and all of the co-authors of this investment request. It is deeply appreciated. Dakota County Parks welcomes more than 3 million visitors each year, a number that has doubled since 2017, offering valuable recreational, environmental, health, and tourism benefits. The park's vision of nature protected, community reflected, all are connected, is a commitment Dakota County has made for our public facilities, programs, and truly guides our stewardship of these invaluable and incredible spaces. Today, I'm asking for your support of an important investment to replace critical facilities that are no longer safe, accessible, or adequate for park visitors who rely on them. These park facility improvements are identified and recommended within park long-range plans and the Parks 2050 Vision Plan, all of which have undergone extensive community engagement. The campground buildings at Lake Billsby and Lebanon Hills Regional Parks and the swimming beach facility at Lebanon Hills are more than 40 years old, which my kids would say is very, very old. Still younger than me. They have foundation problems, with one sinking into the ground, actually, failing ventilation systems causing excess moisture often, and structural degradation. They do not meet fully current ADA accessibility requirements or modern building codes. And they were never designed to serve as severe weather shelters, a critical gap given the increasing intensity of severe weather that we've experienced each year during our 6-month campground season. These aren't cosmetic issues. These are safety, liability, and access issues. Dakota County's 2 campgrounds generate more than 7,000 reservations per year, hosting more than 20,000 total campers, and run at near 100% occupancy on weekends and 70% on weekdays during our peak season of Memorial Day through Labor Day. Guests come from all 50 states, and we are seeing a growing number of international campers, making these campgrounds a regional tourism asset. Also, Lebanon Hills is the most visited park in Dakota County, with more than 700,000 visitors annually. And the swimming beach at Schultz Lake is one of our most beloved summer amenities, and one of the only lake swimming opportunities that kids and families have in the area. But the facility that supports it is failing. Replacing these facilities will allow us to better serve visitors and position us to expand campsite capacity in the future to meet growing demand. Without this investment, these facilities will continue to deteriorate, ultimately compromising campground and swimming beach operations beyond repair, and continue to increase expenses and staff time associated with upkeep and maintenance. This investment serves a clear public purpose by providing affordable, safe, accessible, and modern facilities that support equitable access to outdoor recreation in Dakota County. It ensures that all park visitors can safely access and enjoy their regional parks and protects a tourism asset that benefits the entire region. This investment also aligns with Minnesota statewide goals to expand access to parks and open spaces, modernize aging facilities and infrastructure, promote public health and wellness, and ensure equitable access to public amenities. Dakota County is ready to deliver, and schematic design is complete. We respectfully ask for your support of this capital investment. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no member questions, any closing comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your consideration, and look forward to next steps.
Thank you very much. Now we will move on to the last item on our agenda, an overview of DOC's Minnesota Regional and County Jails Consolidation and Merger Report. Welcome to the committee, Commissioner Schnell and Inspector General Garland. Please identify yourself when you are ready and proceed.
Mr. Chair and members, my name is Paul Schnell. I'm the Commissioner of Corrections. Today, I have the DOC's Inspector General, Michael Garland, with me here today, who will be presenting the findings from the Regional and County Jails Consolidation Study that was submitted to the legislature back in January of 2025. To start with, some context, there are currently 77 county jails and 2 regional facilities across Minnesota. Many of these facilities are approaching or have exceeded their typical 30-year lifespan and are now facing the decision to undergo costly renovations for completing new construction. For perspective, building a brand-new 40-bed jail would cost around $32 million, which is the price point that is simply not feasible for many communities across the state. As a result, some counties have turned to the state for support. Since 2020, the state has invested more than $20 million in bonds for local jails and detention projects. Seeing this uptick in requests for state support, the legislature funded the jail consolidation study back in 23 to evaluate whether increased regionalization or county corrections could be more sustainable path going forward. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to the Inspector General, to DOC, to describe the study findings in more detail.
Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Chair and members, for the record, I'm Michael Garland. I serve as Inspector General for the Department of Corrections. In 2023, the DOC contracted with national consulting firm Justice Planners The firm analyzed jail population data from 2019 through 2024, along with historical trends for each county. They also examined facility age and crime trends. Using this information, they developed a forecasting model projecting jail population need through 2049. In addition, surveys were sent out to key stakeholders across the state. The survey was distributed directly to county board chairs from the firm with the intent that it would be shared more broadly within each county. However, the distribution method created limitations, particularly around participation levels and representation, since not all stakeholders may have received or been able to complete the survey. After recent conversations with Minnesota counties and others, the DOC has decided to conduct follow-up outreach by resending the survey in an effort to better capture stakeholder perspectives. We will reshare this information once the survey closes at the end of this month. One of the first things the study highlighted is how decentralized Minnesota's jail system is. Most jails in Minnesota are owned and operated by individual counties. This means counties build their own facilities, staff and operate their own jails, and most operational costs are funded locally through county property taxes. Jail capacity and utilization vary significantly across the state. Overall, rural counties are seeing declining jail populations, and suburban and urban areas are seeing increases. Some counties consistently experience periods of being over capacity and must house incarcerated individuals in other counties, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, while others may have unused beds, but still bear full operational costs of a 24/7 facility. Using a forecasting model, the study projects that 13 counties could exceed their operational population by 2049. These facilities are mostly concentrated in the Twin Cities metro region and southern Minnesota. While patterns vary across the state, several factors influence jail demand, including population growth, court processing timelines, probation and supervised release violations, and mental health and behavioral health needs. A major theme across the state is the prevalence of mental and chemical health needs in county jails. 68% of jails report that more than 30% of their population has mental health needs, and 82% report the same for substance use needs. We know these needs can extend jail stays, particularly when there are aren't a lot of treatment alternatives available. However, data is still limited in specific diagnoses recorded, levels of care needed, and the effectiveness of the interventions provided. This is an area where improved data and resources could have a major impact. As I mentioned earlier, the study also surveyed stakeholders who work directly within the criminal justice system on how they feel about the regional jail model, and a few themes emerged. First, very strong preference for local control. Those surveyed valued the efficiency and convenience of locally operated facilities. Second, there is openness to regional collaboration if it's voluntary. Stakeholders express interest in shared services and regional partnerships when they make sense. Third, there are concerns about practicality, particularly travel distance. Longer drives for court, access to attorneys, family visitation, and law enforcement transport were top concerns and seen as significant barriers to mandated consolidation. So while those surveys see potential benefits, those logistical challenges are something to take seriously. Minnesota does have two examples of the regional model. These two facilities serve counties and provide insight into how regional models can function under the right conditions. The study identified 3 locations where a regional jail model appears especially feasible. First, the potential for Monoman County to join the Northwest Regional Correctional Center. According to the analysis, Monoman could benefit from merging with larger regional partnership. Integration into this network could reduce future capital costs while improving service delivery for the county. Second, Steele and Waseca counties. Here, Steele operates a relatively new jail with available capacity, while Waseca maintains one of the oldest facilities in the state. Regional collaboration in this area could meet both counties' needs more efficiently than independent facility replacement. Finally, a cluster of southwest Minnesota counties, Rock, Pipestone, Murray, Cottonwood, and Wantawan. While there would be significant logistical challenges due to geography, the combined population forecast for these counties support consideration of a regional facility. The report noted that with appropriate transportation planning and supportive technologies, such as expanded virtual court hearing rooms, a regional model could make sense for those aging or undersized jails. Looking at regional models, there are several potential benefits. First, counties can share both capital and operating costs, which helps reduce the financial burden of building and maintaining facilities, especially given how expensive new construction has become. Second, regional systems can improve bed utilization. Instead of some counties being over capacity while others have empty beds, a shared model allows for more efficient use of existing space. Regional facilities can also support stronger staffing. Larger operations tend to have a more stable staffing level, better training opportunities, and less strain on individual staff. Another important benefit is expanded access to services, particularly for mental health and substance use treatment. Larger regional facilities are often better positioned to provide consistent programming and specialized care. Overall, regional models can help counties move away from maintaining or renovating aging facilities and instead invest in fewer, more efficient, and more modern operations. That said, there are also important strategic considerations. One of the biggest is transportation. Regional facilities can increase travel distances for court, medical care, family visits, and attorney access, which can create both logistical and cost challenges. To help address that, there may be a need for more investment in technology such as video court hearings, remote visitation, and telehealth. Another key factor is governance. Regional models require multiple counties to coordinate on decisions, operations, and long-term planning, which can add complexity. Counties need clear and flexible agreements on how to divide both upfront and ongoing costs. And finally, there are broader community impacts to consider, including maintaining access to the justice system and connections to family and legal support. So, while regionalization offers benefits, it requires careful planning and strong local partnerships to work effectively. So with your permission, Chair, I'd like to turn it back to Commissioner Schnell for recommendations.
Commissioner Schnell.
Mr. Chair, ultimately, and committee members, ultimately the report makes four main recommendations. First, the state should encourage voluntary regional partnerships through planning grants and creating some incentives. Second, is to integrate regional considerations into state funding decisions so counties can evaluate regional options before building new facilities. Third is expanding treatment and alternatives to jail, especially for mental health and behavioral health needs. And fourth, improve statewide jail data so decisions are based on better, more consistent information. Ultimately, the central question is whether it makes sense for 77 counties to independently maintain jail facilities given population trends, growing needs, and the substantial cost of operations and maintenance. We know that each county faces a unique population, geography, financial capacity, and public safety needs. What may be sustainable in one county might be completely unrealistic in another. However, it is becoming clear that the full cost of maintaining a county jail, whether it's construction, ongoing operational costs, staffing, utilities, medical and mental health services, and facility maintenance, is becoming more difficult financial strain for counties across our state. These costs persist regardless of whether a jail is operating near capacity or sitting mostly empty. Additionally, behavioral health needs continue to rise, creating pressure on facilities that may not be equipped to offer that specialized care. Counties must evaluate whether the way they have always operated still makes sense going forward, or whether collaboration with neighboring counties or investment in mental health and behavioral care is sustainable. At the same time, there are legitimate concerns about what counties may lose if they move away from a locally operated facility. Local jails offer convenience for access to court and law enforcement and so forth. There is a clear benefit in having an incarcerated person in their community, especially if the jail is connected to the courthouse. While regionalization can introduce challenge such as increased transportation costs, it may be worthwhile to look at and consider ways to make this make more sense across multiple jurisdictions. In short, there are very complex decisions that counties must make in considering what system will best serve their community's public safety needs in light of fiscal responsibility and the human resources needs over the next 30 years. One of the examples I just wanted to share was something that came up recently in a conversation with a county commissioner, where he talked about the fact that county felt as though they were supporting a neighboring county in the incarceration of people in their community. And I'll just use this by way of an example. Say that county operates a jail that costs them $1 million annually to support, and the neighboring county contracts or buys bed space from that county. And they're paying for that bed space on a per inmate per day basis. And when they looked at what was happening, these two counties had roughly approximately the same populations or needs relative to jail. That one county that operated that jail was paying out $1 million, and the neighboring county who was contracting for bed space only was paying about $160,000 annually to support the placement of inmates in that jail. And so you can begin to see that when you are looking at how that one county, who again has about the same need for jail space, is paying $1 million less the $160,000 that's being contracted for by the neighboring county, that county is bearing an $800,000 burden for the same population. And I think this is an incredibly good example. In this particular case, the county commissioner felt as though their county was supporting the neighboring county because they were not bearing the full cost of operating that facility. Yet that was a business decision of that county at that time. But this, I think, points out the challenges that exist for counties across the state. The other thing I would say is that this is not a Minnesota-specific only problem. It doesn't just come up in bonding. We may see counties seeking other types of relief, whether that is tax relief on materials and supplies to build facilities, which is another way of seeking funding for the building and upkeep of these facilities, which can become also a burden on the state. And this has come up in states all across the country. It is harder and harder, whether we're talking about prison infrastructure or jail infrastructure, for counties and the state to maintain these facilities. As you know, when we've talked about the needs of Minnesota's prison facilities. So there are profound challenges here, but we do think that there is much to be learned from this study. It's extensive, and if you haven't seen the entire 500-plus pages of it, but there is certainly more work that needs to be done here. And with that, Chair and committee members, I want to acknowledge and thank the many partners who contributed to this study, along with the committee who had the foresight to seek, and Chair Lee, who really wanted to see this study out there so that there was some thought given to this really important issue. I also want to thank the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, AMC, county sheriffs across the state, jail administrators, the county attorneys, the county commissioners, and local police chiefs who provided input. We are doing some updating, as was mentioned here, of trying to collect some additional data. But we appreciate the counties bringing to the lack of input from county commissioners in particular and county administrators, and we're putting attention and time to fixing that and getting that information, as Inspector General Garland mentioned. So with that, as we all know, the best decision are made when stakeholder voices are at the table and looking at these issues comprehensively. And we look forward to sharing the results of that second round or updated survey. And with that, Chair and members, we would stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I just want to put a note out here that when we did the tours this last fall, that I saw flyers when we were inside one of the prisons for peer recovery specialists. And I really liked to see that because so when you had that flag in here about how there was such a high need for substance use services, to see that is something that's a tool that's being used. And any way that we can expand that, I would be fully supportive of as well. Second piece would be right before this committee started, Chair Franson and I came from the Human Services Committee, where we talked about a pilot program with DHS helping with the county jails. I would be curious on your thoughts on that and how that would interact with some of what was highlighted in the report.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate that question. I think, this has been an area of considerable concern, as you know, with the Rule 20 and competency restoration issues, where county jails across the state are holding people for considerably longer periods of time than they should when there is a requirement for those services. And that has created in itself some pressures, and we have, the state has tried to take some, albeit with some tweaks to our policy bills around trying to help out with that. But this is an area of profound challenge and a considerable need. So anything that can be done on the DHS side to help meet the needs of these people who are oftentimes languishing, waiting for those services or that assessment to occur is really a critical need for counties across the state and drive some of the bigger challenges that they face.
I just also want to remind the committee that last year's bonding bill included a 50-bed expansion at the Anoka treatment facility, should also help some of the concerns that you're highlighting. Representative Scraba.
Thank you, and thank you, chairs, for filling in this, in my opinion, a huge gap. I represent the 5 counties of the Cook, Lake County, St. Louis. The one you don't have is Itasca County. You got Cooch and Carlton, but I don't have Carlton. But I have all the other counties I represent. And, the whole idea of incarceration, like Cooch County just built a new jail. It was mandatory that it had to get done. It was, and we're talking, 10,000 people in the county. And you have Cook County with 5,600 people, and mandatory that they have these kind of things, and it's like, it's not practical. It's just not there. And there has to be a better way of delivering. Part of the other issue is kind of what the 50 beds issue was last year, and I'm not familiar with Representative Federick, what your meeting was just now, but my notes here, since you said since 2020, over 20 million in state bonding funds for local jail projects. And that's it? That's my first thought was, that's it? We just heard 3 projects for 20 million or more. And we hear this is a large issue, because what we've seen and and what's going on, and I've seen the bills come through here, we keep, changing the punishment of people, but not, why did they get to be the way they are? And we're not dealing with the mental health. We're just if you get caught drinking 3 times, you're going this way. It's like, hey, there's more to this than just the drinking. It's like there's something else at play here. And we keep ignoring it by extending these other things, and it's not doing anything for society, nothing. So, and when we lost the facilities, the mental health facilities in our state, it put the burden back on the correctional facility, which is not what it's supposed to be doing, in my opinion. And if it is, and if that's where we have to find a way to carve out to get these facilities back, to get people the help they need so that they see what's going on and maybe there is a fair amount of chemicals, drugs to help folks now that we didn't have 20 years ago, that doesn't turn them into zombies. They're different. They still function. And they just need help once in a while. They need to diagnose what it is. And I feel like incarcerating, well, for instance, the problem we have is someone gets hurt, and then they bring them to the hospital, and the hospital gets with them, and they're like, no, we can't, that's not the hurt that we work on. And then we'll bring them to the jail. They send them to jail, and they're like, they didn't do anything wrong. They're just not mentally ready to go. So then where do we put them? We keep moving these people around, and it's like, when are we going to wake up and say, there needs to be something else? And I've not had a chance to preview this, to look at it, obviously. But one of the questions that I have is, when you were interviewing the sheriffs and the other correctional facility people, what was their take? Because, I hear the sheriffs in my district talking about what's going on, and what do you hear?
Commissioner Schnell?
Mr. Chair, Representative, first of all, thank you for that, and I couldn't agree more that, the work being done to try and address the underlying issues is critical as we do this. And I will say this, that I think that is the overwhelming feeling of sheriffs across the state too. They want to do things and provide the kinds of services to address the needs of the people that are in their facilities. Yet they face some challenges that it's a bit different than the prison system, given the fact that their population is oftentimes shorter stays. And I think as you talk about this, relative to the question of what our sheriffs saying about jail facilities, this is one of the places where I think they have a very legitimate business interest in making sure that their correctional facility meets the needs of local law enforcement themselves, getting people to court, those sorts of things, which is a fundamentally bona fide, legitimate business interest that we support. At the same time, as these facilities age, just like the prison system facilities age, it does become harder. Standards change around modern correctional facilities and safety and security requirements. And we certainly learn things from occurrences that happen both in our state correctional facilities as well as in county jails that are tragedies. And they drive some of the standards that we see putting in place. I think this is an area of a great challenge for sheriffs. They are oftentimes found in this place of wanting to have or needing to have critical investments in their jail facility, and yet pushing up against the limits and capacity of that county to tax for and fund that facility. And I think this is one of the places where, if you look at Michigan as a for instance, and trust me, I would not ever advocate for this here, but in Michigan, it became a bigger and bigger burden on local counties. And in the end, the state took over jails across Michigan. And they began to run them and closed a considerable number of them and regionalize them because it simply was not something that local communities could bear the cost of over the long haul. And I don't know, I don't know that we're there yet, but certainly from some sheriffs, some county board members, I'm hearing loud and clear, look, we cannot afford to build a $40 million facility in our community and put that burden on our taxpayers. And they're always up against the challenge of building to meet the needs, the mental health, substance use disorder, and in other instances, wanting to build for the future. And I think none of us here, and if you look at this as take away the political kinds of sides of this, criminal justice issues have been an area of considerable interest for both on both the progressive side as well as on the conservative side. And the Koch brothers are really good examples of investors in trying to ask the very question that you're raising. What is it that we as a country are going to do to provide the levels of interventions that keep our community safe, number one, but two, that ultimately help people become active in their communities, better contributors and producers and consumers, which is in our collective best interest. So, I mean, this is, I think you raised the question. We certainly hear the range of input from sheriffs. First, we can't afford it, or I'd like to get a new jail, but, the capacity isn't there. So, we would like to be better partners. We are also in a challenging spot of regulating the jails. And that is around the standards, and oftentimes that's construction and facility-based standards, square footage, programming space, so forth. And those create challenges.
Thank you.
Representative Sexton.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and make this brief. So I represent both Waseca and Steele County, so I'm very familiar with my sheriff's challenges. So two things that really came up to the point, which will update your report, is Waseca is going to build their own jail. The price is $57 million. It's difficult for that size of town. But the first thing is they really had a challenge when they tried to regionalize with Steele, Scott, some of them, Blue Earth, because we could not get them to accept some of the prisoners we had detained. So it's much like a hospital bed when you're dialing around trying to find somebody, and what do you do with them in the meantime? So that was a big player in the decision. You're nodding your head like you understand it, so we don't have a global solution for that, but it's a big problem, and it's not addressed in the report. And then also the time away. When you only have 2 to 3 sheriff's deputies monitoring an entire county, and always this comes up when the weather is, icy and snowy and everything else, to have them transport a prisoner and take them off the road when they could be dealing with car accidents and things like that is another huge issue. So there are a lot of good reasons why we're not focused on regionalization, that we just got to bite the bullet and figure out what we're going to do.
Any follow-up?
Mr. Chair, I agree with you 100%. I do know that the challenges, we certainly are seeing it, and we take on interim commitment orders, the Department of Correction does, from county jails, some of the very people you're talking about with those challenges that we know are going to get sent to prison, and so we have the capacity by law to receive those people, and so we're certainly seeing that pressure, and I think it's an example of the kinds of issues that sheriffs have identified. We know that transportation is a tremendous cost, and there have been some counties who have addressed it through the use of some part-time transport people that were able to be called in. And while I don't ever want to second-guess another county's decision, when you look at the cost of calling people in for that transport, we don't want to take, primary resources out of a community, but you can spend a lot of money on some part-time people to drive or get people to that county, other neighboring county where you're partnering. When you look at the bonding cost of that $57 million plus the operational costs. And so I think those are the hard things. I don't disagree that there is a legitimate business interest in having that close by. But this is a challenge. And I think that's one of the reasons why the report really focused heavily on incentivizing collaboration, because I think, what is in it for neighboring counties, and how do you do this in a way that, especially when a county has already made a decision, how do you come together around governance and sharing costs?
Representative Sexton.
So obviously, like I said, they tried it. The nuts and bolts of the dollars made sense. But the fact that you can't find anybody to accept your prisoner is another issue. It's a huge issue. And whether or not you can take them, and we've got to transport them several hundred miles, and it's always bad weather, we just don't have the people in some of these places that will be on standby, be fully qualified to do this job, but may only work once or twice a month. It doesn't work.
Representative Perez-Vega.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to kind of address the information that was shared with me. I gave a keynote address during the Hispanic Latina Month in Ramsey County Correctional Facility, and a lot of the staff and the inmates wanted to really highlight, when I asked that as the representative, what would you like to see more? And both a mix of the staff, right, and the inmates that were populated at the address. And they were really addressing the need for behavioral health and mental services like our chair expressed. And they also said, cultural competency and recognizing their religions and recognizing just like the effects that it has to bring in the legislators that make the decisions, from whether it's the light bulb in their tiny room to the programs that happens. And, I was just considering like that external data shows, Black Minnesotans are incarcerated 14.3 times the rate, or 9.1 times the rate of white Minnesotans, and Native American Minnesotans at 14.3 times the rate. And the report that was provided contains detailed population projections, facility age data, cost estimates for every county in the state, and but there's no analysis of racial disparities in jail populations, right? Whether it's Consolidation would improve or worsen those disparities. That's kind of flashes me into a flashback of the speech and the questions that I was asking. And so, what are the impacts of what you receive, what the county jails receive, and I'm speaking particularly of Ramsey County, I don't know about the other counties, but that are of service, because a lot of those inmates, they don't want to go back there. They have discussed that, and the staff has said, these are really good kids because they're 19 and they're still kids in those eyes. It's like, how do we connect opportunities so that we're not spending so much money on these facilities that are overpopulated? How do we connect more opportunities for funding resources, even what we have here in our own Capitol complex with the partnership with our Ramsey County sheriffs, being able to do volunteer services and trying to get homeless into housing? I think about the balance of what we're requesting. And like I said, if some feel that, this may be different in their townships and their counties, that's what we can do here in the state to work out with. But I think about the seeds that plant into trying to limit the population of incarceration. So what are the counties doing in the state partnerships to amplify the need from cultural competency? That helps the mind, that helps the behavior, and that helps the overall human spirit.
Mr. Chair, Representative, I think, we certainly are seeing and recognize that the racial disparities in the criminal justice system are pronounced. And I think sheriffs across the state are very aware of it. You can look at even some of the more recent facilities that have been built. Carleton County Jail is for instance, a fairly large Native population. And one of the things that was key there, and they did some specific building for meeting the needs of women, and in particular Native American women who may come into that facility. We're seeing this in Beltrami County right now, is building a new facility. They are very cognizant of the fact that they have a very high population of Native Americans there, and are really focused on trying to make sure there are culturally appropriate and responsive services offered by the jail. So I think there is an interest by sheriffs of wanting to provide those services. The challenge really becomes addressing the complexity and range of need for people. As it also relates to disparities, while the report doesn't go into that in great depth, the Guidelines Commission does track a lot of the data around system engagement by area, in particular by judicial district and counties across the state, so we can see where a lot of that concentration is. But I think there is a growing recognition of the need for this type of programming, and yet, if you're trying to operate that facility and keep it fully operational and up to standards and addressing deferred maintenance needs, it can become difficult to make sure that you're offering the very programs that we know make a difference for people. And I think this is that whole notion of, we have to keep the facility operational, and yet oftentimes it is programs that have become challenged because the facility is lacking.
Let me follow up. Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for the presentation. My question is a little off, going back to what happened a couple of years ago with the closure of Stillwater. Is there any surprises coming? Because I feel like that came out of nowhere. I very much pay attention to what's going on and closures especially, and that one really caught me off guard, and I know we're getting towards the end of session. There's no surprises coming down the pipe this year or anything that we all have to pay attention to, or?
Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, Representative Lilly, no, there is no surprises coming, and was a surprise to us as well. But we've managed it and quite well, and I think, are doing some right sizing ourselves in a way that better meet the needs of the state.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, Chair Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, and your team for conducting this study. I think this is really for those members that are newer to the committee. I think over the last few years that I've been on the committee, we've been visiting a lot of local communities asking for jails and whatnot, and so kind of really comes out of that, having that conversation with the Department of Corrections and really, being a conversation starter. And I really appreciate the conversation that everybody has had, and it seems like the discussion that we had today, really focused on the operation sides of everything rather than the needs. And so that's why I hope that, we could continue for those of you that serve on those committees to have those conversations in human services and public safety, et cetera, that will impact the capital needs that we have. And so really appreciate the conversation from everyone.
Sounds good. All right, well, thank you for being here. And that concludes our meeting. Chair Franson will hold the gavel at our next meeting on Thursday. This meeting is adjourned.